So what uniquely qualifies you to be Mayor?
I would approach the office of Mayor with a very fresh perspective, I think. I'm committed to consultation with the community, and I believe that we need to have a much stronger dialogue with the community. I'm the kind of guy who's open and transparent. I come from a diplomatic background, so I'm terribly respectful of people, and I think that access to information is very important. So I would like to effect those kinds of changes at the leadership level in the council.
And what will your top 3 priorities be if elected?
The first one will be to get in control of airport development, both in Queenstown and in Wanaka. The second would be to withdraw the council's application to acquire a permit to pollute our waterways for the next 35 years. And I think the third would be to make sure that the Climate Action Plan is completed and implemented and strengthened.
And how would you describe the future of the district?
Promising. I love this district, as we all do, and I'm sure that we can manage it in a way that's productive, constructive, serves the well-being of all of the residents who live here, and welcomes new people.
And what major mistakes have we made as a district over the last decade?
I think over the last decade we've seen rampant growth, and that has been disconcerting for a lot of our residents. I think that we could have had a better handle on growth. There's been a lot of rollout of suburban sprawl, which has gobbled up our green spaces. Some of our iconic landmarks, Roy's Peak for example, they're becoming overused. We want to make sure that we can control the demand that there is. It's almost an insatiable demand for this absolutely pristine environment in which we live. And we need to balance those social, environmental and economic objectives so that we get better outcomes. I think that over the last 10 years perhaps the balance has been far too heavily weighted towards economic and commercial gain.
And is a good leader a benevolent dictator or a consensus politician?
I think a consensus politician. I have heard one particular candidate described as a benevolent dictator, but no, I believe that the true quality of a leader is to bring people along with him or her and to include them in decision making.
And tell us a little about your personal background.
I spent 25 years in the New Zealand Government Service. 23 of those years was in the diplomatic corps. That's involved me advising governments of both sides of the House over those 2.5 decades, and it's involved me leading New Zealand delegations to international meetings, and primarily United Nations meetings, where we've negotiated outcomes for the New Zealand government and the New Zealand people. I've done a lot of work on trade negotiations and environmental negotiations. Prior to that, I spent 2 years in the New Zealand Dairy Board, again as an external policy advisor, but that gave me a really good appreciation of primary industries in New Zealand, and so that kind of background I think is relevant to the district council table. It's a background which stresses negotiating skills and consensus building, and that's what I want to bring to the council.
And do you think you might have made a mistake when fighting the bed tax for a fraction of GST when the government said they were never going to give it?
I think it's worth pressing the government for its contribution to our district to come from central government coffers. Ideally, they should be able to apportion, even 10% of the visitor GST that's paid to Wellington. But yes, you're right. They've said no, it's off the table. So what we want to do now is we want to focus on other options for funding us. I don't think we should be walking away from the table in Wellington. I think we should press Wellington to basically enter into a proper Crown partnership with us and to give us money, including from the Provincial Growth Fund. There's no reason why we should be excluded from that. And then if we do need to raise new money within the district from local businesses or from visitors, let's do it in a way that basically doesn't risk distorting our local economy and damaging ourselves. And there are ways to do that. There are broad-based taxation options, which I am in dialogue with Wellington about. And I'd hope that we can achieve a funding stream, a new funding stream, based on any one of those options.
And are you convinced that you're representative enough of the whole accommodation industry?
The group that we formed to strategise over the visitor levy is 134 businesses, primarily accommodation businesses. I think that's fairly representative of the district's accommodation sector, the formal accommodation sector. So yeah, I think that we fairly represent a majority of stakeholders in that particular context.
Okay, and last question, what makes you emotional about living here?
Emotional about living here, the sheer beauty of it really. You know, you look at this kind of vista that we have today and you revel in the weather that we have here, and it's just such an awesome place. I mean, you can hardly ever not be emotional when you see something like this or enjoy an environment like this.